Order the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting for Thursday, July 10th. And can we get a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Rendelman.
Here.
Mr. Freeze.
Here.
Chris is not here today, even though she has a name tag. Mr. Simmons.
I am here.
Mr. Morgan.
Here.
Mr. Jessic.
Here.
Ms. Hernandez. Here.
All right. Let's move forward with the approval of the minutes. We've got two of them from March 13th and May 8th. Do we have any changes that we need to make on those? Do I have a motion for approval?
I make a motion to adopt the, or approve the meeting minutes for March 13 and May 8.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's so approved. And does anybody have anything to the agenda for today that they want to add, delete, change, or move?
I do want to add a discussion.
For today?
Yep.
Okay. And regarding?
The neighborhood wants to know how they can get stops or get speed traffic signs in their neighborhood.
Okay.
Tim, can you move the mic over? I can't hear you, sir. Oh, thank you.
I'll swallow it.
Thank you.
The question is, what is the process for a neighborhood to have traffic posted signs in the neighborhood?
Do we want to add that to the new business discussion, call it item C? That'd be okay? Anybody object? All right, so we'll add that to new business discussion and we'll make that agenda item C. Anybody else? Okay. I don't see any public comment cards, so I'm assuming that we're without that for tonight. So we can go ahead and move on to our new business items. And first one being 2024 annual report.
Yes, so at the last meeting, I had brought a copy for everybody, so you can have an opportunity to review it and provide any feedback. I did not get any emails. Does anybody want to request any changes to it?
My cursory review looked fine to me. Anybody else with any opinions of things that needed to be changed?
I thought it was a little bit of an oversimplification to say that the police department's not being able to patrol neighborhoods. And correct me if I'm wrong, Vance, because you're the one that talked with the police department, but the police department can patrol neighborhoods. They do patrol neighborhoods. It's just that they would continue to enforce at the areas that they've currently identified as priorities for enforcement. That would be transportation corridors, not necessarily neighborhood streets. So and in addition, we could add that, a sentence saying that they could respond to complaints. If they got a complaint about a particular neighborhood street that is very frequently seeing violators, they could target that area. So I just want future TAC boards, and also if this goes to city commission, I want them to be able to accurately understand what our discussion was a few months ago.
That's good feedback. And you are correct. The police department can certainly patrol neighborhoods, right? And if you recall, the information I got from the chief of police was typically in neighborhoods, they don't actively, keyword, go patrol them. It's more complaint driven. And their point was, and this was in regards to the 20 is plenty notion, they would not change or deviate from the current practice of when they do or do not patrol a neighborhood just for 20 is plenty.
And I think in that last sentence there, it says to enforce the program as being the clarifier in that statement. So I think it's not that they can't patrol neighborhoods, but they wouldn't be able to do it to specifically enforce that particular program. So.
I just wanted the clarification to be on the record, since this is going to be our official record of yeah, of all the, yeah, and I appreciate the proposed changes there, so I'm happy to, do we need a motion to adopt this annual report with the proposed changes?
So we just clarified it with, the police department does not actively patrol neighborhoods to enforce the program, and residents can report speed concerns. I'm fine with that language. Is everybody else, any objections? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Go ahead and make the adjustment. Any others? Perfect. So with that, I would move that, well, somebody else can move that we adopt the annual report as it has been amended.
Motion to approve the report as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the report as it's been amended in its entirety?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we're good on the annual report. Next, on to our 2025 goals, 2025 and 2026 goals, to be more specific.
Audrey, did they get this version? Okay.
I think the second page, yeah, that one.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I lead this discussion or you lead it.
Go for it.
You see in front of you the meeting where you all spent some good time, had some great conversation about the goals. Goal number 1, the note is keep as is. Goal number 2 was mainly keep as is with the removal of the Group Citizen Academy. Okay?
And the participation in National Night Out. Okay.
And then goal 3, which reads, member participation as needed on community advisory committees with work related to Oregon City transportation with an emphasis on safe routes to schools. And there were some questions asked by the board. Is there a safe routes to school committee? And the answer to that is no, there is not. The other question that we had noted was, how can they engage with SRTS or the school district? Holcomb is likely the only Oregon City school included in the Safe Routes to School program for Oregon City. The project is coming to completion, and there are no additional projects at this time, and maybe for a very, very long time. The way Dana explained it to us was schools have to meet a certain criteria to be a part of those grant opportunities, and Holcomb was kind of the last one that met those criteria. So she couldn't think of any other schools that would be able to apply for those Safe Routes to School funding opportunities. There's nothing in the queue. There's really nothing more that the TAC board or anybody else can really engage or do with that. So.
What I'm hearing is it'd probably be a good idea to remove that goal from there since it's not a realistic one to achieve.
I think when I read it, I think certainly removing with an emphasis on safe routes to school
Okay.
doesn't really apply. But the goal of member participation is needed on community advisory committees with work related to Oregon City transportation.
Are there any though?
It didn't seem, what's that?
Are there any standing right now that would fit that?
Not that we could think
Okay.
of. So,
So-
I don't know that there's really anything for that goal. I mean, certainly removing the part about with an emphasis on safe routes to schools is appropriate to remove, in my opinion. But, if something were to come up that the TAC board was interested in,
Is there still a way to partner with the schools and not call it safe route to schools? So like working with I think about like the bus depot, stuff like that. So we're all out our neighborhood, like letting them know that if there's a speed sign that's covered by a bush or a pedestrian side, like that's kind of what I thought. I didn't think about safe routes to school at Holcomb, to be honest with you, when I was talking about this. When I hear safe routes, I'm thinking it's a safe route for any kid to travel to the school, so like.
Sure.
I guess you guys all know, I live right here at the corner of Gaffney. My kid rides his bike from my house at the corner of Gaffney and Bertha to Gardner Middle School. It's about 50-50 whether or not he has sidewalks, if he has a bike lane. So like we drove it to try to pave out a path. So that's what I think about when I'm talking safe routes. Like how do we make it as safe as possible, whether they're on the bus, they're walking, they're riding their bikes. So
Right.
I wasn't looking at that program in particular when I was speaking on this and how we work with the different schools to identify stuff that we might be able to assist them with.
I don't know how the Transportation Advisory Committee does that as a group. Individually, you know, as citizens here in town, a couple things that you'd mentioned, you know, that scenario of some signs grown over, things like that. That's just normal business practice where anybody, whether you're on the TAC board or not, can reach out to Public Works and we'll address. If you wanted to have a closer interaction with the school, because there really isn't the Safe Routes to School group or committee, I think it would be more for the individual person or board member, if they are so inclined, to make contact with whatever school that they're interested in and maybe try to set something up with their administration and have those types of discussions.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's bigger than the school, so I guess we can agree to disagree, because the roads to the school aren't controlled by the school district.
Right, they're controlled by the city.
They're controlled by the city.
Which was my point in that if anybody
I think it's
brings things to us, we're happy to look at that.
I get it, but I guess my point is like so I'll just say the bus staff, right? We got bus workers from all over the place, might not even live in the city. Is there an opportunity, like how we go to homeowners associations, is there an opportunity for one of us to do a 10-minute presentation, say, hey, if you guys identify these things or an app, or, you know, I'm looking at like education type things. I live across the street from apartments. I see U-Hauls moving and going several times a month. So I think it's a constant education process. I understand we can't just add a sidewalk or a bike lane somewhere.
But we can have the conversation, right?
Yeah,
That's what I was putting, and you know, I'm thinking of something, bear with me here. The notion of TAC, trying to find entities, as you mentioned, different school entities, you mentioned the bus depot, finding entities like that to engage with as TAC, is that a goal? I mean, you know, it's not something that we, staff, are going to actively go look for you in that regard.
And I was gonna, before you made that comment, and it kind of piggybacks to what I was thinking, is I think that goes into number 2, neighborhood association engagement. So I think that's kind of the precipice that's going to spur on these conversations, because it's gonna be different needs for each individual neighborhood association. And when those topics come up there, you bring it back to the TAC as a whole, and then we can identify, you know, what the steps are moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it, generically speaking, would fall under that neighborhood association engagement.
Okay.
And I think it would work its way through the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm thinking like, you got a school, and school knows where the kids are coming from, right? And some really have to take a bus. There's just limited choice to really safely get from their house to like in case of my kids, that's not feasible. They can't really bike anywhere. But within the very dense urban area where we're missing sidewalks and stuff, you're telling me that you wouldn't be able to go and get additional grants to fill some of those gaps?
I didn't mention anything of that effect. All I mentioned was, I mean, I think the city would be absolutely for trying to get grants and things like that. What I was saying is, we're not gonna go try to seek out these different entities for the TAC board to be able to collaborate with. If we hear about them, know about them, 100% we're gonna share those with you, right? But, you know, with the Safe Routes to School, that seems to be a non-issue at this point, unfortunately.
And if there's a new grant program that pops up that's a new safe
Yep.
routes to school type situation,
Totally.
you guys can make us aware of it. We can see what schools could participate in that or would qualify, and absolutely so maybe you know, in here someplace, continuing to look for opportunities for grants for improving our, routes to school.
Yes on that, and I think I can speak for Dana. You all know Dana fairly well, and I think everybody is at least somewhat aware of how well Dana and the city has done looking for different grants, whatever they may be.
Yep.
But transportation oriented, Dana's done a fantastic job. So on your point, Jennifer, the city will still keep looking for grant opportunities. It's not like we would turn anything down. And it's not about, again, my point wasn't searching for grant opportunities. It was more searching, to Bruce's point, for the entities that TAC could collaborate with to figure, things out more, as he mentioned, with sidewalks, things like that. And as you all know, as TAC board members and as citizens, if you hear something from a neighbor, person that your child goes to school with, something that needs to be addressed, you know the mechanisms on how you can get a hold of Public Works, whether it's you bring it up to us here at a TAC meeting, or you reach out to Dana or myself and say, hey, I just learned about this issue, whatever the issue is. And like always, we check into it, right? And do what we can. Sometimes we can solve the problem. Sometimes we can plan to solve the problem. And sometimes we go, I don't know how we're going to solve the problem, but that's how that works. So, but grant stuff, Jennifer, certainly we will continue to look for grant availability.
It sounds like there's some interest on this committee to hear more about what the city is doing for building new sidewalks, new bike lanes, especially as it relates to nearby schools. And this is not going to be safe through the official Safe Routes to School funding, but just to hear about what our work plan is, what's on. I'm skipping ahead in the agenda to future agenda items, but this is definitely something, from what I'm hearing from at least a few of our members, there would be some interest in just what can we expect in the next 5 years to be constructed.
I think that's a great future agenda item.
Cool.
I'm not prepared because I don't
Right.
work in necessarily that particular world.
Right.
But seriously, I think that's a great future agenda item, and we can figure out a way to compile what information we do have and the city's process on how they look at those things and present it to this group.
But can we change this, where it says Oregon City Transportation, comma, with emphasis on safe route schools? Take that out. I mean, if there's other, I guess, maybe working with other entities as deemed appropriate or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I was even thinking if we just move the, October National Walk Bike School event up to that area number 2 where it talks about community education, we just get rid of the rest of 3 if we're not gonna focus on that safe route, so we're still capturing that, we would still wanna do this event, we still wanna be part of that. But if the Safe Routes to School is a particular program, I didn't realize it was a particular program, so that's my own doing there. But knowing that at the National Walk and Bike event, right, that's where we could gather some information, for that information. They talked about, going to the neighborhood associations, those sorts of things. I think that's, I don't know, to me, that would be kind of my suggestion if we're looking at getting rid of it, but I would still like to capture that bike and walking event up there. That's something that we focus on. Because it kind of ties into what we're saying. And if you're saying, if we're still looking at that could then tie into that future 5-year plan. Because I realize we're not just gonna have, money fall in our lap tomorrow to go do sidewalks around Oregon City and add bike lanes and move property lines. It's right. The areas I'm talking about are hard, right? They're already 2-lane roads that are squeezed in tight, but as we continue to grow and you see those options, you're gonna have those kids where they have that choice of bus and or biking. My kid is one of those. He could take the bus every day. Him and his buddies like to ride their bikes, so they ride their bikes because it's still only, I think it's only like 1.5 miles from my house or something. Something short enough, so still giving different people those options to walk, bike, or utilize the public transportation.
So I think the way Audrey's got it right now, she's moved the National Walk Bike event up to goal number 2, we could put on a future agenda item to have Dana or somebody report back to us with what the city's options are moving forward with school-type concerns and grants in the future, and maybe give us a presentation on what could be feasible in the future.
There's a bullet under number 2 that still is there, like safe routes to school as a, act as a,
Would you like me to remove that? I did keep it just so we could have the conversation and find out for sure whether you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not a viable option anymore,
Okay.
my guess is we would remove that. And then we could probably completely remove 3. Yep, like you scratched it out. Okay. Not closing this part of the conversation, but if anybody has further comments on that, or we can move on to other
No, I think,
items.
so like what Jen was saying is, maybe we remove the grant updates underneath number 4, where it talks about being informed and provide feedback, like, if we're looking long-term, like it's talking about the 205 local street standards, maybe that's where we move. We're looking at, is there sidewalk grants, road grants, I don't know what they all are, I have no clue. But it is, but maybe that's the place, and we kind of split the
On
3.
number 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could almost put remain informed and provide input and support for projects and developments that may impact transportation and grant opportunities to pay for such.
Something like that, then it just,
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
captures.
I think it fits into there, including tolls in the Abernethy Bridge.
I like that one twice.
More specifically.
well, is that even like, I guess,
That's almost a separate subject, isn't it?
yeah, I would strike that out. I don't know. I mean, the city is keeping us informed on all these different matters, I guess, if we want to name them.
Which part, would you like me to strike something out?
I was thinking that, I
Just
mean,
strike.
I-205.
Or do you want to make that a separate, just a number 5, stay up to date on things like tolling and Abernethy Bridge project?
We've scheduled ODOT to come present on that topic at the next meeting, September.
I'd like to leave the wording in there wherever we can, just so we don't lose sight of, that's a huge one. My personal opinion. Okay. Any changes to what we've already talked about, or anything further down the list?
On that, TSP, number 6. Every 5 years, but I've been here more than 5 years, I don't remember
Right.
being done, so.
So I do have some notes that Dana provided on that. So item 6, which was item number 7 on the 23-24 goals, participation in the city-county transportation system plan. And the notes I got were, the county awarded a contract to begin the TSP update in June. As a reminder, when the when the county does a TSP, they only look at facilities outside of cities. And she had mentioned to me, make sure you read that, that's a very important component of it. The TSP update looks like it will have a variety of public outreach, including a technical advisory committee, which city staff will participate in, a public advisory committee, which is also open to the public, and a geographic, I think she misspelled the word, some kind of geographic sub-area meetings. I think I missed a space when I typed it out. With 5 sub-areas also open to the public. And partner agency meetings, which staff will participate in. They will also have online surveys, open houses, workshops, etc., as part of the TSP update. Staff will do our best to keep TAC informed of opportunities, but TAC members should sign up for direct updates from the Clackamas County found here, and there's a link that we can provide you if you haven't already provided. So again, that's notes on the TSP. It sounds like as a TAC board, there may not be opportunity, as individuals there would be, but keeping in mind, the county TSP only looks at facilities outside of cities. And
Yes,
yes,
but I'm asking about the city's TSP. When is that slated to be done?
I don't have information on that, gentlemen.
Because I was just trying to say every 5 years, should we change that or remove it? Because it's,
Well, the bylaws state that, and so to change our bylaws, so that was part of a conversation that I had with Dana, is that maybe at the beginning of next year, we can add that as a topic to review the bylaws and make some edits to it to make it current.
okay,
But right now, and that's why I put them in parentheses. So per the bylaws, it has to be every 5 years. The last time was in 2013. And for the cost of it, Dana was saying that at this time, we wouldn't be redoing it. But the way it's worded is that you're supposed to review it every 5 years, not, so it's kind of like you
Not
can
update it, just
technically.
look at it.
Yes, exactly.
We opened the book, we looked at it, that's been reviewed. Okay.
So, yeah.
okay.
But I kept it on there because it was part of the bylaws and I didn't want that to fall off and you not to be like, oh, we haven't done that for 15 years because we forgot about it.
So would we,
Well, then I wouldn't wanna take this out. I would then, maybe would be good for the city staff to, one of the future meetings, we do actually the review TSP and see what has been accomplished, what is it to be accomplished, how we're tracking. I think that would be an useful thing. I'm sure it talks about a lot of different things, sidewalks missing, all sorts of stuff. So I think that would be prudent to bring and say, we did this in 13, there's no reason really to change a lot of things, you know, and here's how we're tracking projects we've done, what we're looking to
Yeah.
move forward. I think that would be useful.
Yeah, agreed.
And while I was typing this, I actually meant to put in the date. I think the last time would have been in 2018. I think it was around 2027 that it should be reviewed, or is 2018, 2023. So it'd be like 2028 that the next time this would need to be reviewed. And that was part of our discussion too. Dana and I had just chatted a little bit on it, was to say what we have done of it, just as you described.
Okay.
So I think that's great.
Still gonna be here in 2028?
Well, I think it would be, I think a lot of stuff happens, and I know you guys do a good job through the doing public works report, but if that could be maybe like a little bit linked to the TSP, I know you guys have annual budgets, biannual budgeting that's tied to TSP, and so, or those projects in there, so.
would it behoove us to review the transportation system plan every 5 years bylaws and receive annual updates from staff on progress? So we just get an annual report once a year of where we sit?
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
The second part I added in, it shows the participate in the county transportation plan, and I believe that you would need to participate as a Clackamas County.
I think we could probably strike that part, being that we would need to do that as individuals. And then on your line above, and receive annual updates by staff.
Annual receive, thank you, updates. By staff,
There you
thank you.
Yep.
And then I added the review roadway improvement program annually, because that's also a part of the bylaws.
Okay.
And in today's agenda, I do have our 2024 annual PMUF report.
I like it. Any updates to our updates, or additions to our, that we haven't done additions to?
Do we need to adopt these?
I think so.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, I make a motion that we adopt.
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We can put that one aside. We are back to Vance on the Public Works report now.
Okay. As Audrey mentioned, we are scheduled to have a update on the ODOT I-205 Abernethy Bridge. project on our September 11th meeting. And next bullet down, the summer construction project map. You have it there in front of you. I'm not going to go over all the projects. You can see them. The legend does a good job of identifying what they are. Already in progress, things are going well. One addition to something that's not on that map, but I think it's good information for the tech board, is Molalla Avenue. And everybody knows how torn up Molalla has been. Following the work from the I&I sewer project and the current water transmission line work, staff have moved up the roadway reconstruction project on Molalla Avenue to 2026. And what that means is our PMUF plan had identified Molalla in 7th, I think in 27 or 28 maybe, but because of all the work with the temporary patches, we've moved it up to 2026. This will include curb-to-curb paving of Molalla from approximately Harrison to Warren Millie, and then certainly more information will be shared with the tech board prior to the event. So that's some good news. Other paving project, I believe Audrey sent this out to the group as a FYI. Next week, I believe, Holmes Lane, that again had a water line project, temporary patch. It's going to we bumped that one up also, right, to get done this year because frankly, all the citizens that live around there and have to drive on those roads need a break. So we're getting that knocked out next week. I think it's July 13, 14.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
This goes along with it, yeah.
So lots of good information there. There's several links, and then certainly all of this information is available on our website if you'd like to delve into it further. Okay. If we're all good, I'm going to move on to the Clackamas County Evacuation Plan report. And just so you all know, before I kind of get into the report, what I did is, the county has been working on this for a couple years now. It started in 2023. The city has had involvement, as I'll talk about a little later on. Kittleson was hired by the county to help with this evacuation plan. I have the 96-page report that Kittleson produced for the county. And I took some excerpts from that report because it verbalizes how they did the phases, the intro, how they did phase 1, phase 2, and where they're at in phase 3, much better than I could. So if you bear with me, I'm going to read excerpts from the Kittleson report. And by all means, if there's questions as we move forward, let me know. So for the intro, Clackamas County has identified the need to conduct evacuation planning that considers the impact of multiple hazards on the community's transportation networks. Recent disasters have highlighted the need for predefined evacuation zones to be used in emergencies to quickly delineate and communicate evacuation levels, avoiding the need to define new evacuation level boundaries in reaction to an emergency. To respond to this need, the county is in process of identifying and refining evacuation zones and routes as part of an all-hazard approach to evacuation planning. This multi-year project that involves a wide array of stakeholders and is divided into several phases. Phase 1 of the project, conducted in 2023, developed a methodology for creating evacuation zones and routes for the county for use in emergency evacuation situations. The technical memorandum outlines the approach used further to refine the draft zones and routes as phase 2 of the project. And I'll be going over phase 1 and phase 2 in a little bit of detail. Evacuation routes serve as the primary roadways for evacuees to use and will be communicated to the public as recommended routes. Evacuation routes were selected based on roadways that are expected to be accessible in the event of an emergency and that provide the most direct evacuation routes to major highways and potential capacity for evacuating traffic. So in a nutshell, that kind of summarizes what Kittleson and the county, the work they did to get to the evacuation routes. And again, we'll be covering that. Do I just hit the arrow? So phase one. The first phase of the project, conducted in 2023, developed a GIS-based risk factory inventory and identified draft evacuation zones and evacuation routes. The risk factory inventory includes data relevant to evacuation planning, such as roadway data, land use, hazard data, demographic information, natural features, and key community assets. Evacuation zones will be used in the event of an emergency to provide evacuation orders or other emergency communications to predefined areas throughout the county. The primary focus and expected application of these zones is wildfire evacuations, though all potential emergency hazards are being considered. The predefined evacuation zones are expected to be used in emergency situations to quickly delineate and communicate the evacuation levels, avoiding the need to define new activation level boundaries in reaction to an emergency, as has been the current practice of the county. The county's 21 disaster response zones, also known as DRZs, were used as the basis for the evacuation zones. The DRZs reflect areas that could be isolated after a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, with zones delineated by bridge and road infrastructure that would disconnect areas if destroyed, as well as natural boundaries. The evacuation zones were developed primarily based on key roadways, neighborhood and community areas, geographic features, and population. They were developed through an iterative process and involvement of a technical advisory committee, including internal county staff. Through phase two of the project, the term zone was referred to, the term zone was used to refer to the DRZ boundary, and the term subzone to refer to the evacuation zones within the DRZ. And as you can see in front of you, so during phase one, the county had reached out to the city, and there was a long meeting that city staff had with the county and representatives from Kittleson. We had it at the police station. They literally rolled out big paper maps of the city, and they did this with all of our neighboring jurisdictions. And it was kind of a brainstorming session, right? The Kittleson folks hearing from county personnel and city personnel on our thoughts, because we know the city better than, Kittleson might, and even the county, as you might imagine, Clackamas County, they got a whole big geographic area to worry about. So we city staff brought that more intimate knowledge of our city limits. And you can see the handwritten notes that occurred doing that. Again, that happened in phase one. Kittleson and the county, once they got through all the different cities and had those types of meetings, Kittleson went to work and produced maps similar to what you see on the right hand of your screen. And you'll see some of the changes that were done as part of that phase one work. They're listed there on the side. So this is obviously a county map. It doesn't incorporate all of Clackamas County, but they really focused on, the jurisdictions with the biggest populations: Oregon City, Whistling, Gladstone, Happy Valley, LO, Milwaukee. So this is a great map. The red lines are the evacuation routes, okay? But what they did for all the jurisdictions was city-specific maps. And before you is the one that is Oregon City specific. Now, I would encourage not only TAC board members, but any citizen, I hope they check out these maps, and here in a minute, I'm gonna explain how everybody can make access to these maps. Look at what the county and with city staff support have designated as emergency evacuation routes, okay? Taking into consideration terrain, bridges, things like that. But also, look at your neighborhood where you're at. Typically, there's more than one way to get in and out of your neighborhood. And just personally, as property owners like yourselves, drive your neighborhood if you haven't, maybe you all have, and look at those other ways that you might be able to navigate through your neighborhood to get to one of these defined emergency routes, evacuation routes. I think it's just good practice as a homeowner.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, for example, Redland Road.
Yes,
Redland Road goes under the 213.
it does.
And that bridge is going to stay during the subduction earthquake, right? And you're gonna be able to drive underneath.
That would be a great question for Kittleson, the engineering company that the county hired to do this analysis. I mean, I know where you're going. I get it.
No, I was just curious that
I didn't.
that information was available, or the state was able to, or the state
Yeah,
provided, or
I don't know. I don't know,
Curious.
Chattermere. Possibly. I don't know what seismic level that bridge was constructed to. So I don't know the answer to that.
My question was gonna be, I think what originally spurred this conversation within the TAC was after the fires.
Yep.
And my recollection of things being on Holcomb, is basically that Redland, Abernethy, 213 intersection failed immediately. So what coordination do we have with the sheriff's office and the police department about potentially blocking off certain areas, reversing traffic in certain areas? So the outflow of traffic can, is obviously being outpaced by the capacity.
Right.
So I think most people can understand, hey, if there's a fire on the east side of town, we want to head west. And there's 5 different routes that we can get there. And I think most people are going to follow the course of least resistance to get to that path. The problem that I saw was the overload of the capacity and the failing of the intersections to the point where it was gridlock.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's great that we understand the best route, but if you can't get anywhere on that route, you've got a big problem.
Yep.
So was there anything beyond this that came into conversation about those?
Not to that detail in the report that I read.
Okay,
Okay. I read most of it.
okay.
The report does not go into that type of detail about if an intersection is inundated, what is the next step?
Because
Right.
for example, if you took the off-ramps from 205 onto the expressway and shut them down,
Yeah.
and then from Schooner to Redland, you made that an outflow. So people coming on southbound from 205 that can't get on, but outbound, you can go to the freeway and you can go north or south. So shutting down some of those intersections and opening up that relief valve to get people through those intersections. Now you're going to block people from coming into town, but if there's an obvious hazard, then, they can choose to go side streets or not come into town. But trying to redirect that traffic to where it can actually move, to me, was more the question I think that we were posing to whoever it was at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, great point. And, yeah, I think all of us have that exact same concern because it was not good.
Yeah,
That's what I thought this was gonna be, honestly, was like, I know to drive to Mall Avenue, right?
right, I think we
That
all,
made no sense, but when I couldn't even get out of my house to get to Mall Avenue because it was gridlocked. And so that's to his point, is I thought this evacuation plan would have some sort of levers of how do we utilize our city, whether it's the police department, fire department, city transportation, hell, maybe there's a volunteer community group that steps in and helps do things. That's what I guess I was looking for, because
and
highlighting these routes is great. It doesn't do us any good if we got 50,000 cars bumper to bumper.
and I think if we're talking, this is a 10-step process, this has to occur first.
Yeah.
But is there conversation about step 3, 4, and 5, or if they left it at this and that's as far as this
At
is
a
gonna
county,
go?
at a county level, I don't know if those conversations will necessarily continue into the detail that we're talking here, right? Where I can tell you those conversations will continue is with city staff. And there was a lot of lessons learned, right, during those fires. One, the county shouldn't have put such a huge area under the evacuation notice.
I think that's what this is, that this is, they revised all these zones, so I think the way this should happen next time, they're gonna be doing
Right.
notifications in waves, so they can meter the traffic, not say
Exactly.
all of it, like, you know, like you're in the zone, and all of a sudden, like, you have 10,000 vehicles,
Yep.
they're supposed to like manage that in smaller chunks
Exactly.
and move the traffic.
And I alluded to that somewhere in my first couple of paragraphs, that the county had broken the entire county up into different zones, and their intent is to utilize those zones in a more strategic way, depending on where the threat is, okay? Which will help with situations like occurred, because that was horrible, right? The gridlock. Two, this is my opinion, I think that the decision was made very hastily to do that widespread evacuation. And there wasn't a lot of time for ODOT and the county and OCPD and Public Works to collaborate and formulate a plan on how we as government entities are going to work to shut down on-ramps, shut down signals, keep traffic flowing one way or the other.
But I think now's the time to do that because the meteor hits, you know, east of town right now as we're sitting here.
Right.
We're not gonna have time to make those plans.
But true.
So we need to have
But those
those,
discussions, haven't really happened that much, unfortunately.
yeah, those are the plans that we need to formulate ahead of time. And I think it's futile to do it without county, without state. Because if we can only handle the OC PD routes and we can't integrate with Abernethy, which is a county, and 213, which is a state, you know, if we only do one part of it, it doesn't work.
Well, just a few weeks ago, I don't know if it was a fatality accident or was accident right there on the,
On 213, right where Redland comes in.
yeah, and then that whole highway was shut down and everybody were going through town. It was gridlock everywhere. It seemed things were moving, but not the way.
Yeah, it's 2 hours to get from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill.
And maybe
Somebody
those,
died, so they had a much worse day.
I understand that, but it goes to the point of like, how do we
we can
move
use,
traffic? Like, I'm not,
It's almost impossible. Like, I think when you get, I mean, there was a semi coming down and trying to turn onto Washington, and he just like did his best, and then basically like, it took him like 10 minutes.
and I'm definitely not saying we shouldn't shut down those roads in those, you know, extreme circumstances. But what I think we can do is use those examples as seeing how traffic reacts and seeing where
Right.
things break.
And especially, a wildfire, typically, especially if you use the scenario that happened last time, it's happening way out in Clackamas County and making its way this way. So there is time to implement some of those plans and things like that. Your meteor, I don't know about that one. That was
I'm just saying, you never know when the
Don't know about the
emergency is
meteor.
gonna happen.
I think
Same with the traffic accident, that fatality.
Yeah.
It happened, things plugged up immediately.
Yep.
And then it's like, sometimes it's better left to leave the signals on, let people try to navigate through and get where they're gonna go, than try to shut things down and start rerouting people.
And
And
I-
that's a decision typically by the PD.
In those acute situations like that, I think you're 1,000% spot on. But what I'm saying is, can we look at the data when those situations occur and see where the things that are becoming problems and say, okay, in a situation where we have advance notice, we know that if you pinch over here, the relief's over there, and this is where we need to get our resources to.
And thanks, Jennifer, for bringing up the zones. You worded better than I did about the county, and the county utilizing their zones in a more effective manner on when they issue those levels of evacuation notices. So I appreciate that.
I mean, I think in terms of when you look at Clackamas County, in terms of the hazards, fires, yes, flooding, but really like it takes forever to flood downtown, you know, like you could literally move everybody out of the way. I think seismic, if we have subduction, cascade subduction zone, I don't think anybody's going anywhere. Everything will be shut down for days and days before relief even comes in town. So there's nowhere for you to go. But I think in terms of the fire, I think they developed something that should be much more effective. And then, like Len says, you could plan for those things. Like accident, it's difficult. You know, you're taking the volume off the 213 and trying to route it through the city, which is not designed to do so.
Good conversation.
Is there any kind of a central location that you guys monitor traffic that you could have adjust the traffic lights to all flow green in one direction and the intersecting to be flashing yellow?
That's a good question.
And so that you can keep the flow going, and then as the feeders on the side, we'll have to treat it as you can feed in to keep, you know, as space is available, instead of having it turning red, you know, red to green.
Right. So there are several traffic cameras that are owned by Clackamas County. I think we might own some, but Clackamas County maintains them and operates them for us. A lot of the cameras are pan tilt zoom, so the county, and I think Dana might have this capability on her computer, typically they're on trip check, right? Anybody can get on trip check, but they're just sitting there. The county does have ability, and I think Dana might, to log on and actually move a camera, so there's that ability. And Tim, I think the county remotely, I'm pretty sure they do, the county remotely can adjust signal timing. So I think the answer is yes. Are they at all the intersections that they would want to adjust timing and look at? Not all of them, probably. You know, I'm familiar with the camera locations, but not intimately. And it's not like we have them, you know, all over town, right? There's a few on Beaver Creek. There's a few on Washington. There's a few on 213, Beaver Creek, and Reese. But I'm pretty darn sure the county does have ability. I don't know if it's on all of them, but at least some of them, and it may be all of them, from their computer to adjust the timing of those lights. So.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting if you had the evacuation routes, if those could all be controlled going north, because that's where we're most likely going to escape to, those would be solid green.
Yeah.
The ones going southbound would maybe operate on like a normal situation. And then on the east and west corridors, the intersection of them, have them flashing yellow. So that you're keeping the flow going, because nothing is more of a bottleneck than waiting for one car to get through or 5 cars and then plug it up.
And those sort of adjustments, or, you know, investigating on how that could work, you know, got to defer to the smart engineer folks that program those lights. Because I know where you're going with that, like have a longer green for 213 north, but then you've got the side streets to think about. So it's a balance between keeping that main thoroughfare moving, but keeping everybody from the side streets, like you guys experienced on Holcomb or on Redland, able to get out on the highway, right? So, but to answer your first question, yes, there are several cameras in town, and I'm pretty darn sure the county can adjust them. Dana could confirm for me.
Because to give you an idea on the timing, once you make a left on 213 off of Redlands Road, it's virtually impossible to get past Prairie Schooner without a red light. It doesn't matter what time of the day I try. You're going to stop, you know, and so the idea would be to keep that flow going.
Sure. And a light like their Prairie Schooner, where you don't have vehicles wanting to enter there necessarily or that much, that would be a great candidate for ODOT, because that's an ODOT light. And I don't know if ODOT has I don't know that there's a camera there at Prairie Schooner, and I don't know if ODOT has the ability to adjust their signals like that.
You can make those outer 2 lanes green the whole time.
I think most intersections are programmed in design, and there's some flexibility, but what you're talking is, I don't know, like you have a corridor and everything has to be interconnected, and being able to like instantly make changes. And I don't know how, you know, I know that ODOT has installed a lot of fiber. I think some of the city signals are not on the five, on the, on.
It's
on the
combination,
county.
fiber and not, yeah.
Yeah,
So in the essence of time, I think we will move on, but my only ask is that, I know we're not gonna solve this problem here, but my hope is that that part of things will continue down that road, and I don't know what we can do from a city or,
I agree, and I'd like to see those same things happen too.
okay.
Well, you can, just like the paving project on Redlands Road, they shut down Holcomb, and one morning I was 20 minutes sitting on the bridge just to get down to the bottom when they were doing the paving. And boy, did it back up in a hurry, you know?
Yes, it
So you
does.
can see like when you're not having the coordination of it. In place of the meteor, we could possibly have a large cargo jet that could crash over the city.
go there?
But we're just giving you other scenarios other than
I was
fire.
trying to come up with something very implausible.
Give us nightmares. Okay. Moving on. Phase 3 was the community engagement period. They started in February, as you can see on the screen. They did focus groups. They list out the amounts of participants and groups. Public survey, I know Audrey had sent all you folks the link to the public survey. That was in March and April. And then one-to-one meetings, April and May. And as you can see, a selected handful of community leaders. I don't know who the leaders were. Wasn't me, or I don't think it was Dana either, but
maybe mayor.
it could have been the mayor, hopefully city manager. And then public outreach. They're doing a big campaign starting immediately. And please, I truly encourage you, just as a fellow citizen, go check these out. They're really well done websites. First one is signing up for public alerts. It's super handy to have on your cell phone. And the next one, Audrey just clicked on, was the evacuation routes, what we just talked about. And even though you just saw the maps, if you were to scroll down, you'll see all the cities that the county worked with. You'll see Oregon City. If you click on Oregon City, it will bring up the maps that I showed you earlier, if you'd like to scrutinize them or study them more.
How are the routes being communicated other than like someone going and signing up? I guess in the event there is an emergency, I guess depending on the type of emergency, you know, if it's a wildfire or if it's something else, is that just being sent via text, or is that like what alerts are being done?
So from the county standpoint, if people do sign up for the public alerts, you will get notified via text. The county, and have you talked with Jared? Jamie Poole from the county recently, like I think yesterday, sent the city a bunch of good links through Facebook, a variety of other social media platforms, and are asking cities to push that info out to citizens on city websites. You know, I'm sure Jared, our PIO, will probably push it out on our city Facebook page to try to get this info, because it really captures these three things, out to folks as best we can. So I hope that answered your question on how would people know, Julie. But it's really more of a social media website campaign push at this
I mean,
point.
like if we have outages, we lose cell service.
Right.
So,
Only after when the batteries run out.
What were the last time they were pushing that also through? Because I think it was showing up on my iPhone
The
somehow.
public alerts,
Yeah,
probably, yeah, could be.
I think the state also, they can go through the state network and push those notifications too.
So sign up for public alerts, know your routes, and the Clap Go kit is just about personal preparedness. There's some really good information on there. And if you're so inclined, search those links out, and I think what you forwarded to them, they can click on and bring it up too.
I'll forward,
Through the
I'll
agenda?
send, yeah,
Okay,
yes, through the agenda items you can.
okay.
Thank you.
Good dialogue, folks, thank you.
All right, we are on to communications. Anything we need to communicate back and forth with staff that hasn't been done so already?
I think we want to jump back.
Oh, we did have one more topic,
We do have one more topic of the
which was
annual
supposed to be
report,
5C, which was,
but also Tim's topic.
yes.
Process for neighborhood.
Oh, you're right, we did have Tim
Considering
on there.
traffic.
But we did forget Tim, so do we want to circle back to your? Oh, my question?
Yeah, could you repeat the question, Tim?
Yep.
The question is, we had an HO meeting last night, and we're still having this problem with speeding. We've identified who it is, but they live outside the HOA. So the question a lot of people was surprising, they didn't know is, what is the speed limit? And I go, well, that's in your handbook when you got your license. But the city, or the association was wondering, we don't have any speed limit signs in our neighborhood or the neighborhood adjacent to us. Is there a process for the association to apply to the city to have 3 reminder 25s, or maybe if we decided to do a 20?
Yeah, so it's as simple as emailing myself or especially Dana Webb. And it's something that in her position as acting city engineer and public works director, she will do some analysis and see if signs are warranted, be the first step. Typically you have neighborhoods, and although there are people that want more speed signs, in a lot of neighborhoods, if a new sign, whether it's a speed sign or not, gets installed, it's in somebody's front yard. So there's some coordination with homeowners, trying to keep the peace with different homeowners. And some people are like, yeah, no problem, put a sign. And other people are like, I don't want it in my front yard. And sometimes we have to put signs where they have to go.
Right.
But I think it's something, if you identify what roads in particular, or a neighborhood, a defined neighborhood, we as staff would look into that.
So what would you recommend? Would they have a choice of doing the 20,
No,
or do we just do the 25?
it'd be 25 at this point.
We don't have any 20s laying around in your warehouse.
No, not a one.
Not a one. We can peel that 5 off.
If I catch you up there peeling 5 off, Tim, I'm turning you.
Or I can turn it around and make it faster.
If people are looking for additional speed signs,
Yeah.
we're more than happy to look at that.
Well, there is no additional signs. There is none. We don't even have,
But that's a very common practice.
Yes.
If you drive most
Yeah.
neighborhoods built in the last decade or two,
Yeah.
you'll see maybe a sign at the entrance of the neighborhood, and that's the speed for the neighborhood.
yeah.
So,
There was a lot of those kind of eyes, and I was explaining all of that to them, but
yeah, and again, it's something we'd be happy to look at, Tim.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm certainly not saying, tell us how many you want, we're gonna go put them up. That would not be the case.
Should their neighborhood association put together a letter and just send it in?
They certainly could, absolutely.
yeah, I toned down the idea of the speed humps. When I started throwing out numbers, they're like, I said, well, we'll collect 1,000 from you then.
Right.
So,
And we still got PMUF. I almost skipped that.
What am I doing for PMUF?
yeah, but I'm
Just our
missing a
annual
page here.
report. I did not print that off.
We had,
That's right.
yeah.
So is that what we've given them?
We don't have anything
Or am
on
I
that.
talking
No,
about
it's
that?
just our annual report that we do each year. Jason and I pull it together. And it's a combination of his work and, it's part of their bylaws that we go through it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's just the background of the fees and the money
How
stuff.
long ago were you able to send this to the group? Just recently? Okay.
Should we wait? Should we wait?
Yeah, I'd like to give the group time on their own accord to digest it. I'm sorry, this isn't a component that I studied up on for this particular meeting.
You want to push that to the next meeting for future agenda items?
Yeah, that would be my preference.
Perfect.
It's a report that staff does every year. We're looking for your feedback, but, the report is, Audrey, is that correct? The report's pretty much done, so.
We're just sharing with you what we did over the past year.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's put that on a future
Just sharing
agenda
info with
item.
them. And by the next meeting, if we go to share it and you're like, Vance, we all read it. We don't need to hear you flap your gums anymore. I won't.
On Holcomb, we have a official finish date on that?
I've heard that it's pretty much done except for some street lights.
Street lamps, yeah.
Yeah. Are they gonna pull the asphalt on the south side and fix some of that? They did a nice job on the north side of it.
Right, I'm not sure, Tim, I'd have to look at, so south side of Holcomb up towards around the school
Well,
there.
they're basically from the center line to the south of
Yeah.
the road, there's a lot of areas there that really, got hammered with constant ditch digging all the way across.
And again, this is kind of by the school and the Sears Farm development?
Yeah, mostly in the Sears Farm
Okay.
area. They've got the crosswalks in there, but people don't, they do work, but people don't push the button and they just wander across the street. And they haven't put the actual painting of the crosswalks in yet.
Okay,
They're
Gotcha.
still, still getting most of the vegetation, the trees in,
right.
but it was trying to figure out.
My apologies, I don't know the paving limits on that job, but I can certainly find out and let you know.
No, you can come on and visit us up here and
Yeah,
we'll give you, it looks a lot
Still
different than
waiting.
about a year ago.
barbecue invite or something, Tim? Come
What's
on.
that? I can invite you up here anytime. I got a tree, I have a tree you guys need to look at and why it's underneath the telephone or.
Underneath the barbecue.
Ulterior motives.
You missed that. That was on the 4th. We had a neighborhood barbecue.
Bribery.
Yeah,
Any other future agenda items that we want to get on for next meeting?
I don't know, maybe this is something that you can answer now, or maybe you can't, but, with ODOT budget not going through, the funding or the money that's coming to the city is not really changing. You guys are still operating within your own
oh, it's the
means.
city?
Yeah,
Doesn't affect us at all,
okay.
thankfully. Yeah, it's not affecting us at all. And it's not even affecting some of our WIFIA projects and things like that because they were already in motion and federally funded infrastructure projects. So from what I've heard, it's not affecting the city and certainly not affecting budgeting for staff and things like that. So you're stuck with Public Works for a while, Jedediah.
Anybody else? All right, adjournment is my next item, so we're hereby adjourned.
All right. Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.